Take a listen, take a seat. I want to tell you a story, so listen closely. For the ones that are awake or the ones that are asleep, doesn't matter. This is one is up for interpretation, so you can take what you need. Imagine a being that was created by the Creator, that dropped from the heavens with nothing but confusion and left on this earth alone and lost, but knew they had to make the best at all costs. So the being looked around, feeling lost and confused, and no one they saw that even remotely looked like what they were used to. The gold paved streets, the trumpets that normally sound, the beauty that they once knew for all of their beginning was as far away as they could even think to be a thought, only a memory. So that being made the best of it. It found a place it could call home, but this home was more like a one-room shack, basically in the ghetto. This being felt out of place. This being didn't understand emotion like the ones that were around. But that being tried to keep a smile on its face because that being knew the one thing of all was love and joy, that they knew what that was. They knew that that was the one thing that would have to get them through whatever this path was that was destined for them to go through. So that being went on, and days turned to weeks, and weeks turned to months. And the only piece of happiness or peace or comfort that that being found was in this little child that was outside of town. This child bumped into him one day on the street, going to the market, and looking in his eyes, he saw nothing but innocence. Innocence that he hadn't seen. Innocence that this purity that just made him seem so serene. It was a piece of hope and a piece of home and a piece of his creator, his father of all. And now he built a relationship with this little being. But then again, he'd go and see, a day here or a month or a week. But one day he went knocking, and there was no little being. He didn't know what happened. He didn't know anyone that he could go see or who he could talk to and question where was this little being. Looking outside one night, looking at the moon, all of a sudden he saw flashing lights, which he didn't understand, but soon he came to know that those lights weren't anything of good or of happiness, but of devastation, of sadness. And that being knew without actually knowing what was sadness. That sadness turned to anger and frustration of not understanding. Why would someone that was created by the same one that created him, do something so tragic? The being didn't know how to process this. He was a divine angel, if you must insist. But down here, the being didn't know what he was. And he was soon starting to forget even what home really was. But again, he thought he'd make the best of it. So now days turned to weeks, and weeks turned to months. And as he's walking home from what, they call work, there was a group he saw that also saw him. And he didn't know what they want. But he took a deep breath and he tucked out his chest and he walked 10 paces to get to where he could rest. And amidst that walk, that group approached. They weren't looking for anything that was of good standing. Nope. Two of them looked in his eyes and they saw that there was something about this being that they didn't want any part of, and so they kept to themselves and they just stood to the side. But the other two, they were arrogant and cocky and they felt like they had a one up on this dude. So they decided to confront him and making jokes and being crude. And this divine being remembered that anger and that frustration from those things that happened to the little being that he once saw as nothing but peaceful. So finally, he released that rage. He finally released what was pent up inside, like an animal in a cage. So now the townspeople looked at him as if something was wrong with him, as if he was troubled or he was some type of just angry little man or some type of nuisance or infection that they had to cease, or that he was no longer someone of peace. And so they tried to outcast him. So where he